Ladies and gentlemen, it's officially time to get back on the streets here, except this time it's back to the Down Under for the Sydney Motorsports Park, round number 7 of the TGN Pro Series. We are just about at the leg end here for the Pro Series and the Pro-Am Series, and unfortunately we get to see our last round next week, Thursday, for the Pro-Ams, and then in 2 weeks' time, the final round, round number 8, for our Pro Series. My name is Tristan Herbst. Joining me today in the commentary box is Jordan Huben from the Cape Town TGN Centre. So we've got a little bit of love from both sides coming in here today. Jordan, how's it going, and are we ready for an action-packed session here for the 3 heats of round 7?
How's it, Tristan? And yeah, welcome. To myself, I would say. Nice to be on comms for something a little bit different. I'm used to in real life racing, but I've always wanted to do it on Sims. So very excited for this. And as a driver myself, finally getting to watch these drivers and at the pros in this case is going to be fantastic. I've watched some of the commentary and the live streams from the past 6 rounds, and I must say I'm definitely ready for the 7th one.
Absolutely incredible. There you've heard it now from Mr. Jordan. You've got 2 real life and now officially virtual sim commentators with you here for round number 7 and round number 8 proceeding. And so all that essentially means is we're going to have a good time here and get to watch some drivers. Yeah, absolutely. I get to watch some drivers send it around track here at the Sydney Motorsports Park. I did have a little bit of time to get on the rig just before the events of the day started. And I've got to say, we've got quite a complex circuit coming up here for you. Lots and lots of turns and a lot of rotation and coasting needed for these BTCC cars and that front wheel drive to actually make it work. Otherwise, that grass becomes your best friend and your radiator begins to cry a little bit. So the drivers do have to be a little bit careful with how they navigate the track. They really have to manage that front end and let the rotation do the work. Otherwise, they will unfortunately end up planted off the asphalt, which is not ideal circumstances for the BTCC cars. It is currently Tevin Paul up in front, but that time is definitely unofficial. 1 minute 55 is nowhere near the times we were seeing in practice. I think we're seeing about 1 minute 32s or 3s, Jordan, across our top 3. So definitely going to see some improvement across the board.
Absolutely. And I mean, as you say, with the difficulty of running front wheel drives at a circuit that is so, I suppose you could say, unpredictable with the insane amount of terrain and elevation changes, you having obviously driven some laps in the touring car, with myself doing some laps in the 86 Cup last week in Pro-Am series, even that in a less horse-powered rear-wheel drive car was also a mind-boggling experience for my first time out on the circuit.
So a nice little touch coming towards the end. It seems like our admins have picked a couple of good circuits towards the end side of things, making it a bit more difficult for our drivers to just call it quits towards the end. And that just brings even more fun as the drivers start to accumulate those points. But talking about points, before we break down into the last 5 minutes of qualifying, let's go through our current championship standings heading into round number 7. It is indeed still Christopher Long up on top at the podium spot, number 1 with 252 points to his name. Michael de Kock lines up just behind with 230 points. Kito Majia gets himself up into 3rd so far with 203 points. Ralph Schuster just inside of that top 5, 197 points in 4th. Daniel Kent supercharges himself after the previous round, an absolutely incredible series of results across the last 3 heats, gets himself into the top 5 with 195 points. Jezakia unfortunately gets pushed down slightly to 6th with 189 points to his name. Aratile Motsagotsele will be down in 7th with 178. Jared Leask sits down there as well with 164. Carl Williams and Derek Truscott still remain 9th and 10th. Unfortunately, no points difference from the previous round. They didn't have too great of a session last week. I believe Derek was not attendant for round number 6, but Carl Williams was there. He was just having a bit of a tough time around the circuit in round number 6. But that is officially your championship standings heading into round number 7. And we've got about 4 minutes or so left on our qualifying roster as it stands. And at the moment, it is Kito Majia, and those times are looking a lot better. Jordan up at the top with a 1 minute and 32 flat. Now, that's going to be very difficult for De Kock and Motsogotsele behind him to beat.
Absolutely, and I mean, with the difference between first and second between Magia and De Kock at this point in time, 0.2 of a second, roughly, between first and second, and then less than that by almost 100th of a second between Motsogosele and De Kock for first and second. Obviously, Motsogosele starting on the, as of currently, we obviously got to wait until the last 4 minutes comes to conclusion. But I think right now, even further down the grid, second or third and fourth, sitting for the second row of the grid, that's extremely tight, and the rest of the ways down the grid. I think this is going to be a mighty finely packed race day today for, I'm going to say right now, all 3 heats. I think it's going to be very, very close. And the last 6 rounds have also been incredibly, incredibly great racing. And I'm very excited for the last 2 as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The last 2, it gets a little bit sad when it's coming towards an end, but those last 2 are quite important. The penultimate and the final round is really where our drivers start to stretch their legs, and you see some of that hidden talent start to produce across our track. So we're hoping to see a couple of our figures out on track, someone like Ralph Schuster and possibly Daniel Kent, the 2 drivers sitting in 4th and 5th in that standing, possibly wanting to try and breach into that podium spot in the final 2 rounds here. If you are unfamiliar with the run of events here today, we do have qualifying currently running with 3 minutes left to go on the clock. We then have the following of 3 heat races, each 20 minutes long, with 1 mandatory pit stop. Heat number 1 is obviously based on your qualifying results that you're seeing right now. Heat number 2 is then reversed based on the results of heat number 1. And then heat number 3, quite possibly my favorite race, the chaos race, where it is completely randomized by the server. And so the drivers have got to they've got to work with what they get, right? They don't really have that option of starting up in front or behind based on their skill level. They have to just accept their fate, either from the front, mid-pack, or the backside, and that is simply all that they get. Before we head on to our main race for heat number 1, we cannot forget the amazing sponsors on board here. Master Drive in the bottom left-hand side, their logo will be featuring for the entirety of this race, bringing that advanced driving experience to the winner of the TGN Pro Series, along with TGN simulators providing some incredible vouchers to our winning drivers. And that can obviously be redeemed in store for either sessions or purchasing any form of equipment that TGN sells. And I've got to say, there's a lot of hot stock coming in, so you want to make sure you get your hand on those vouchers so that you can possibly upgrade that at-home simulator and level up your experience with TGN. But a minute left to go on our qualifying. Kitso Magia is looking quite uncontested as it stands. We do see Ralph Schuster does say to Foster, have you got something? Yeah.
Yep. Kitso Magia just going from a 31 or 32 flat now down to a 31.6. So taking out 4/10 of his last time. And that, I think, it does in fact put him quite comfortably 6/10 ahead of the next best. So I think this is going to be a good fight at the front, but as you said a little bit earlier on, with the new tracks coming in, or this one being a newer track to the calendar, especially for myself not having raced it before up until last weekend, this is really going to catch out some of the very, very quick guys and some of the guys coming up the ranks, and we'll see really who can adjust to the undulation and the severity of how awesome this track layout is.
Yeah, not even the track layout. There's just so much gradient to play with as well, and not much runoff, like we already mentioned. One minor error in terms of your driving angle and your turn-in points and matching that apex, unfortunately, it will steer you off into a grass patch. There's not much of a sand or gravel traps around the track to save you from hitting into a wall. That grass tends to be quite slidey. I did experience it in my 3-lap practice, that if you do touch that grass, it tends to carry the BTCC cars quite far away. It kind of washes them away from the shoreline of the asphalt, and it's a bit difficult to try and get back. But it looks like Kitso Magia has been beaten, because Carl Williams comes in at the end of qualifying with a 131.624, beating him out by 2/100ths of a second. And Kitso Magia, unfortunately, being booted down to second position there. Not much he can do, and he's just going to have to accept his fate there. Kitso has been someone that other drivers have been complaining about, just due to his pure pace. Carl Williams, like we mentioned, having a little bit of a tough one in the previous round, but seems like he seems to have found his footings here at the Sydney Motorsports Park, Jordan, because, I mean, up into first, right at the end of qualifying, that sets him up for success for heat number 1.
Yep, absolutely. Sitting in within the top 5 and top 10 in the first early parts of qualifying. I mean, now he's come up straight at the very end to put it only 200ths of a second between himself and Kitsumajia at the flag. So this first race, with that qualifying time all the way down to what is now fourth, with Michael the Cock just missing that 131 barrier with a 132 dead. I think this is going to be very, very close in this first heat of the night.
The first turn as well is a little bit of a hairpin style turn. You'll see it. Oh no, sorry, I'm looking. Well, technically first or second turn, depending on if you classify
Yeah.
the left hook as a turn. It's more of like a. To me, it's almost like a fader corner, but you've got to watch your speed when you're coming down from the main straight. But technically, first, second corner, your main attacking corner is a bit of a hairpin, which is quite an interesting one for our drivers to tackle. But that is officially it for our qualifying session. We do have Heat 1 coming to you live in approximately 5 minutes' time. Grab something quick to drink, maybe something quick to eat from the kitchen, but you better be back in the next 4 or so minutes before we get started with Heat 1. We'll see you shortly. And we are officially back for the start of round number 1. Well, heat number 1 of round number 7. As you can hear, the cars are revving it up on the grid as they're getting ready to send it off the line. 20 seconds till the gantry lights will appear at the top side of the screen, and the drivers all getting ready with that launch control. They want the best possible start in this scenario. It is Carl Williams with Kitsumojiya, two of our fastest drivers, up on row 1, who are going to be competing it all the way down the line. I'm trying to find a camera angle. It doesn't seem like we've got one for the long shot. So we're going to be on board with Kitsumojiya. It is lights out, and Carl Williams gets a great boot start off of the launch. Kitsumojiya, unfortunately, not that great of a launch, and he's already feeling the pressure now from Ralph Williams. Drops off from Michael de Kock as well, going into that turn 1 left sweeper, and there's already a lot of change of position. Kitsumojiya down to 6th position, a terrible start off the line there, and someone's gone wide. It's Gio Sakia.
Pile up, yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Gio Sakia goes wide, looks like he touched the grass, and he's collected 4 cars with him. Looks to be Kitsumojiya, who's gone off the race, 2nd place starter, down to 12th position in this race, and a massive drop-off of performance here. This is going to be a huge climb back up on top, Jordan.
Absolutely, as the leaders now head through the midsection of the circuit. Here also comes into play after the laps I did last week, and I'm sure you found in your laps as well. You can use a lot of the curbs on the outside or the runoff, but there's some sections just like this, this row of 2 corners. There's that concrete wall on the outside that you don't want to get caught up on, as we see now coming through Williams and Kent into this hairpin. It's getting mighty tight at the front between the front 3 as we come around the final couple of corners to complete the first racing lap.
Yeah, top 3 already putting that pressure on each other here to try and claim glory. And it's only been 2 minutes, guys. You've got a lot of time to play with here. Don't go throwing it away. And that last corner sweep as well, very easy to fade out onto the grass on the right-hand side if you aren't focusing well enough. So the drivers have to keep themselves locked in to ensure they do not run wide. The rest of the order, though, has completely changed up. It is Carl Williams who remained that 1st position, but Ralf Schuster gets up into 2nd. Not for long, though, as Michael de Kock comes alongside into the 1st corner and holding the inside line. And looks like he's not giving it up at all, but Ralf Schuster, finding the speed on the outside line, has found some form of traction, and he's kept the position for 2nd. Michael de Kock has to settle behind and will keep 3rd position. Oratile Matsogotsele just a bit further behind in 4th. Grigoratos has also gotten a good start and maintains a good 5th, with Daniel Kent putting the pressure on him just behind in 6th position. Sean Norse, the man who was also a little bit unlucky last week in heat number 3, seems to have found a bit of traction here at the Sydney Motorsports Park. The pink Cooper Leon is going to continue pushing on in 7th position. Vilji Truscott, the only brother of the Truscotts, out on track here tonight. Unfortunately, Derek not available to be here tonight, and Vilji will have to try and carry the family name as strong as possible in 8th position. Tevin Paul holds off that 9th position slot, with Session Governor holding off that top 10. The rest of the drivers all to play for in the background. Kitsumojiya all the way down in 12th position still, trying to make his way around Dean Jacobs, but it's proving to be slightly difficult. JP Goslet also a bit further down in 13th, with Gio Sakia being that driver impacted at the turn 1 incident, all the way down in 14th position. And our final driver out on the grid right now, the leader of the TGN Pro Series as it stands in terms of the championship standings, is Christopher Long, down in 15th position. That has got to be demoralizing, sitting at the back with such a huge gap. But with that championship lead comes the confidence to try and push up for the rest of the grid. And let's hope that Christopher Long has got it in him to try and contest back up towards the top 5.
Absolutely, and even though that there's a little bit of, there is absolutely hope to play with for Christopher Long at the tail end of the field. We've got 2 more heats after this as well, and speaking of that, we haven't even got to the pit stops yet, as very wide there in the mid-pack between Daniel Kent, Grigoratos, Norse and Truscott. A big group of 4 that are coming through the first sector of the circuit now. But all will come into fruition when we start getting into our pit stops in the next couple of minutes. We'll see who goes early and who tries to just hang these BTCC style cars out until the last moment. And that obviously, the finishing order of this first race is there's an incident in the background. Just have it's Norse that's backwards and sort of cutting across the circuit just as we changed camera there. Hopefully not picking up any other drivers coming
Oh, he
through
did.
on this part. Oh, unfortunate.
Yeah,
As we
looks
see,
like... Yeah, sorry about that. Looks like he collected Gio Secure or Christopher Long. No,
oh,
it was Christopher Long again,
oh,
who just gets caught up there. Sean
terrible
Norris,
luck.
I can hear the rage downstairs below me. A couple of vulgar words that shouldn't be heard on the stream. And thankfully, that's down at the floor level. I'm just above where that can't be heard. But Sean Norris, all I can say, not a very happy man. I'm not sure what happened with Sean Norris. I think he might have touched the grass on the exit there and just lost rear traction. But sent himself into a full-on cartwheel-style spin, unable to get the car stopped on track, and unfortunately becoming a bit of a bowling ball at an alley and slamming into two cars there. I believe he collected Christopher Long, who landed up backwards into the black and yellow wall, and another car who just got sidewinded, but fortunately for him, was able to jump back on the circuit. But lots of action already here within the first 6 minutes of racing, and lots going on towards the backpack, which is what we like to see. You know, it's not always the greatest thing seeing the front pack performing so well, and then the mid pack becomes boring. But that's something you don't really get to see at the TGN Pro Series, because it is literally chaos all over the grid. And what I mean by chaos is good kind of chaos. It's just racing action. It's door to door everywhere you go here. Back up to the top lines, as Jordan was saying, it is very tight between our top three right now. Kyle Williams to Michael de Kock, and now Ralph Schuster losing out that second place, and he's got to settle for third for the time being. Mr. Consistency in fourth. Mr. Aratile Motsogotsele will try and possibly go for a slight undercut strategy. It's a common tactic that he does use in the Pro Series, and we'll have to see where it places him. But he's got some good fresh air up in front, so no dirty air that he's got to worry about for the time being. So let's see what strategies are going to be pulled. Daniel Kent has also completely steered clear from Ryan Grigoratos in those previous fights, and he's got a good amount of breathing room. So unfortunately, a bit of splitway coming up towards the top side, but still a lot of action to contend for. Kitsumajia holding a massive pack of cars behind him. That starts the battle for 8th, all the way down to Sean Norris in 13th position.
Yep, still very unfortunate for those collected in that incident in that last lap. But obviously there's a lot of catching up to do throughout the entire field. And speaking of catching up, I have to give props to Kitsumajia, who dropped down to the rear end of the grid after that first corner, second corner incident, if you're calling turn 1 or that left-hander corner. And he's back up to 8th position at this point in time. He's fighting just there behind Vilji Truscott. And making his way up into the top 5, or towards the top 5, because obviously any of these points that are available are very, very valuable for the championship standings. As now we still look in towards the top 3. Now even closer together, we've seen a couple of moments of Carl Williams pushing and getting that Cupra very sideways, but keeping it in the lead spot, with de Kock and Schuster getting very close, coming up on halfway through this first heat. As now, I don't know about you, if we're going to start seeing some very early undercuts, or if we're going to wait until just after the 10-minute halfway mark to see people diving into the pits.
Yeah, it's a common strategy coming in around the halfway mark. It gives you the equal tire life before and after. We do have a couple of our brave soldiers who try and hold it out all the way towards the end, but you do tend to see the struggle as they try and keep the tire life up and running. But I would say parking it and pitting at around about the halfway mark is a good strategy. It keeps the tires nice and consistent, and as we do see that, there comes our first pit stop. Looks to be one of our green vehicles. Is it Mr. Consistency? It's not. It's actually the car down in, I believe, 13th or 12th position.
Govender.
Is it Mr. Govender? Indeed, it is. So Session Govender and Vilji Truscott come in. Gio Secure joins them. So it's a three-way that come into the pit stop now. So the first of the pitters, and that's all going to be the early pitting strategy, the undercut coming from those three. And we'll have to wait and see how that's going to play out for them. 11 minutes to go, so 9 minutes on those first tires. They're going to come out now on those freshers with 11 minutes to go. So roughly halfway, with the rest of our drivers still trying to make their way around. But for the time being, this is going to be an insane rock of championship points, because the guy down in 9th on championship standing is currently holding the lead of the race, and no one is able to get past him. So Kyle Williams is really doing a phenomenal job here at the Sydney Motorsports Park. He's definitely found a bit of flame here, and he's trying to hold it as much as he can, but Michael de Kock is proving to be quite an imminent threat behind. Ralph Schuster is also not going to let this one go. Ralph is known for taking the overcut strategy. He usually comes in around the 5 or 4 minute mark. So let's see what he does. He's got the dirty air in front of him, so he might come in for a different strategy depending on what he is feeling like. But he does have Michael de Kock in sights for a possible overtake. So that's the beauties of a pit stop strategy. You never know what they're going to do. And there we see it.
Ooh,
It's
and how's
completely
that?
different.
The front two, Williams and de Kock, dive into the pits at the same time. This will hopefully give the chance to Schuster to try and get some clear air at the front end of the field and pull away, hopefully by the time he comes into his pit. But we'll see how clean the front two, or the previous front two, of Williams and de Kock's pit stops are when they come out of the pits in just a moment. Obviously fresh tires and maybe some fuel depending on what the strategy is. I also see JP Gosling in the pits, Tevin Paul, Christopher Long, very good championship contenders diving in now at the halfway mark indeed, and we'll see where they come out. But those that just jumped into the pits at the 9-minute mark, the likes of Giasakia, Session Govender, as well as Vilji Truscott, I'd like to see where Giasakia can come up through the ranks after having a difficult first half of the race, diving into the pits earlier than everyone else, and maybe will find himself moving up the field throughout the second half of this heat.
The overcut strategy is always a bit of a risky one, in my opinion. If you've got to think of the position that Ralph Schuster's in now, he's been left all alone towards the top end of it, and obviously Michael de Kock and the other driver contesting up in front, being Carl Williams, have both come in. It now means these laps that he's out and is not coming into the pit lane, he has got to drive his absolute heart out. He cannot make a single error, or he risks the entire strategy being thrown away and being rendered useless. But I think he's coming in. Indeed he is, and he pulls the car into the pit lane now. So can that one lap of a difference be... Oh, Ralph Schuster completely speeds into the pit there. I'm not gonna lie to you, that was well over speed limit, and I'm unsure what the real penalty system is gonna do here. But Daniel Kent now takes P1 away. So does Ralph Schuster, Kitsumagia, who now moves up into second. Both of them still without pit stops, and so they're pulling a complete overcut strategy here. But I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit worried for Ralph Schuster. That was a complete speed into the pit lane, and I don't know if a penalty is going to be administered there, if it's just going to be overlooked. But he does come out, and he's right in between Carl Williams. Unfortunately not. He's just going to be side by side. Yeah.
And I was just thinking to myself, Tristan, that lap ago when Williams and de Kock came into the pits, I've just had a thought that Williams was leading when they came into the pits, and now there's a major gap of what is 3 seconds between Williams and de Kock now, with Ralph Schuster just sitting behind Carl Williams at this point in time. So there's going to be this battle for second place, but this has given Michael de Kock the open air and the open door to try and pull ahead, while the two ahead, Kitsumagia and Daniel Kent, still need to come into the pits. Daniel Kent, I've got a feeling he won't run it any longer than this, with 7 minutes and 45 seconds left to go. So will he try extend it maybe another lap if the car can take it? The Corolla is on edge as he comes through the final 2 corners. So we'll see if he pits now. Is it going to leave open air for de Kock, Williams and Schuster in the previous top 3, as he does indeed come into the pits now on lap 8, or coming up on lap 9? Will the front 3 move back to the front after Magia comes into the pits himself? This might be a 3-way fight for the victory with 7 minutes to go.
Yeah, that gap is going to be an absolutely tremendous factor towards Michael de Kock's lead here. And that fresh air in front and behind. So the fresh air in front, obviously it's a nice pillow in terms of car performance. He's going to be able to just scrape everything he can without being affected in front. But that pillow behind is all about confidence. He no longer has this overwhelming pressure from behind, like a driver is breathing down on his neck. He's got that freedom behind to just focus on the road ahead, forget about the rear view mirror, and plant some incredibly quick laps up ahead, so that Carl Williams and Ralph Schuster have got the hardest possible chance of catching him. And so that is the objective now of Michael de Kock. Can he do it and maintain the consistency while Ralph Schuster and Carl Williams continue to fight each other? And the thing is, these two behind, we know them as incredibly aggressive fighters, Carl Williams and Ralph Schuster. They're not going to just give each other the position away without a good, hard-earned fight. And the more that they fight, it's an easier runaway for Michael de Kock up in front. So he's in an incredibly good position here for the win of heat number 1. And he's just got to keep the consistency running for the remainder of this race. Unfortunately for Arutilia Motsogotsele, that bracket of clean air behind him has dissipated, as Daniel Kent has found some speed around track in his Corolla XR, and he's right behind now and potentially contesting for breaking further into the top 5. He holds the top 5 limit as it stands, but Artile sits just up in front with 4th position. Vilji Truscott and JP Goslet, who's gotten some cheers from the UK in our YouTube virtual grandstand. And that's great to see the support coming from international markets. But Vilji Truscott will have the pressure behind from JP Goslet as they head through the mid-sector, actually the final third sector of the race here, and heading over the checkered flag line now. There's also a bit of a battle for 10th position as it stands. A long way fight between the likes of Session Governor Grigoratos and Long, all in a 3-way fight here. A little bit of a grass tap there for Grigoratos, but it's going to be a 3-way long train down the main straight here, with Governor holding it behind from the 2 white cars of Grigoratos and Christopher Long. But here comes the switch up. Grigoratos dives to the inside, almost going 3 wide. On the inside, there's contact. Yeah, I was looking at that contact and hoping we're not going to have a fader, but it looks like they've all managed it, and Carl Williams has to play his place right here, but it looks like he's gotten ahead and moves just 1 up on Ryan Grigoratos.
It was mighty close coming to the first corner. I mean, it is a very fast flat in the the GR86s at least. I don't know what it's like in the touring cars, but it's mighty flat through that left-hander where you don't want to give the opposing guy any room, even though you have to. But trying to take that inside line, going through the fast left-hander, you sort of leave yourself a little bit of room for mistakes to occur. And in this case, there was some contact, but both drivers stayed on track and they both neatly in their same positions, besides the difference between Long and Grigoratos switching out on that lap. But now this also opens up the door ever so slightly for Session Governor as he goes on the grass ever so slightly. And there's another side-by-side moment between Long and Grigoratos through the hairpin midway through the circuit. So this is just going to be chopping and changing for the last spot within the top 10. But still points up for grabs for all the drivers out at the moment, as we'll just try and see back to the front end of the field how close that is, with coming up on 3.5 minutes left to go. There is some quite large gaps between first and second, that being De Kock and Williams, and then Williams and Schuster fighting for second and third within the podium places. That also might get a little bit closer coming to the last 3 minutes of this race.
The beautiful part about how racing works here at TGN is that battle currently between Ryan Grigoratos and Christopher Long, it's a literally veteran versus rookie. We've got Christopher Long, who's obviously been in multiple seasons of the TGN Pro Series. He won last season, and here he is fighting with Ryan Grigoratos. Fresh blood, his first ever TGN Pro Series. Is only 6 rounds in technically, as he's now participating in the 7th round. So 6 rounds of experience versus a seasoned winner for the TGN Pro Series. And look at the money. Look at the run for the money he's giving out to Christopher Long. It is back and forth fighting, and he's back ahead of Christopher Long in the mid-pack now. And it is absolutely great to see a little bit of back and forth between 2 completely different driving style drivers. Obviously, exact same car, exact same colors. Yeah, the Cupra Leons being the more common pick for this season, having a little bit better overall performance in terms of the long run, but still a great fight nonetheless between Grigoratos and Governor. And just for your information, Jordan, that first left corner or left turn, if recording at a corner or a turn, is not actually flat in the BTCCs. If you go flat, really? Okay. You will end up on the grass on the outside. So you probably have to give it a quick downshift to get that rotation going, and just a light tap on the brakes to get the front end to actually turn in. Otherwise, unfortunately, you are destined for a bit of a wall. And trust me, they're not nice on the front bumper of these cars. So the drivers do have to pay careful attention to that. But they've had to practice. But one thing I haven't even noticed is how fast this race has gone by. 1 minute and 55 seconds left to go. Michael De Kock leading with an absolute charge up ahead. And Carl Williams has also breached a decent gap between himself and Ralph Schuster. So he's given himself plenty of breathing room coming towards the end of it here. Daniel Kent has indeed gotten ahead of Oratile in the previous couple of laps, and he's gotten that 4th place and now just needs to hold it. JP Goslet also gets ahead of Kitso Magia and Vilji Truscott.
Looking at this fight myself, between Goslet, Magia and Truscott, they're mighty close together for 6th, 7th and 8th, and side by side between Goslet and Magia now into the last sector of this lap. A little bit of contact when Magia goes up the inside, up towards the gantry and down the circuit once again. This undulation obviously catching some drivers out, but also trying to get a move to stick cleanly. Very difficult in some of these corners with the circuit going all over the place, but everyone keeping to their own with the last minute coming up now, and it is still fighting at your top 3. I say fighting, but with some fairly large gaps amongst themselves. De Kock, Williams, and Schuster. With then Kent, who, as you said, got past Matugosele in the last few laps. But I'm looking to this top 10 battle still between Magile, Goslet, and Truscott for that 6th, 7th, and 8th. And then still Geosakir, Govender, and then behind them, Grigoratos and Long still fighting out, trying to get into the top 10.
Yeah, this Grigoratos and Long fight is going to be an interesting one to see who's actually going to come out on top. Because Christopher Long looks like he's gotten quite a bit of a distance between himself and Grigoratos. And unfortunately, that's not working out in his favor because he's behind Grigoratos. So he's got a chase now for 15 seconds. And this is officially final lap. Michael de Kock is only in the middle sector now with 10 seconds left to go. The white flag is officially going to be waved here. And that is going to be it. He just needs to nurse the car home now as he goes underneath the Sydney Bridge and comes down into the bottom side of the rest of this track. The final sector starts shortly for Michael de Kock, and he has had such a good fight and such a good strategy, what it seems, to get himself into the lead with a comfortable bit of a pillow behind. But into the final semi-hairpin he comes to round off in this race. And coming across, he does not want to fade onto the grass now on this final minute. You've got to keep the rotation on these front wheelers. And he looks like he has managed to do it just on the edge of the curbing. But Michael de Kock kept his cool. He kept the confidence. And he's going to come across the checkered flag line to take pole for heat number 1 here tonight. Carl Williams is going to come across in second with Ralph Schuster claiming some good points to his name in third. Daniel Kent comes just down the hill to finish off in fourth. Aratile will take fifth. 6th position, what a good fight back up towards the top is Kitsumaji after a rough start. JP Goslet will take 7th. Fulgi Truscott takes 8th position just behind. And Jeff Sakia also a good recovery from the start of the race into 9th position. Session Governor looks like he's going to confirm his 10th position here with Christopher Long having a slightly more unfortunate race down out of the top 10 in 11th position. Ryan Grigoratos seems to have made a mistake in the previous lap, and he's all the way down to 12th now behind Christopher Long. That's his finishing position. 13th will be Sean Norse after his spin-off. Then Tevin Paul. And our final driver on today's grid for heat number 1 is indeed Dean Jacobs. But that is it right now for heat number 1. Any last words for heat number 1, Jordan, before we head into our short intermission for heat number 2?
While it was mighty close at the front end of the field with the grid inversion for heat number 2, I think this is going to be even more spectacular. Starting closer to the front within the top 5 in the first, second, and third rows in heat number 2. That might get him in a good position to hopefully have a good strategy and score some good points. And then we'll also see the likes of Dean Jacobs, Tevin Paul, Sean Norse, and Ryan Grigoratos starting within the top 4 to try and fight for that overall victory.
You heard it from the man himself, Jordan, giving us that great race debrief. But we've got it all coming in again here for heat number 2, reverse grid this time around. And that's definitely going to be an interesting one for all of our drivers on the board. Once again, grab something to drink if you need to, grab something to eat, but we'll be back in approximately 5 minutes' time for heat number 2. And we are officially back with about 20 seconds to go here before we get started with heat number 2. It looks like Dean Jacobs has been rotated towards the top side, but sometimes the leaderboard on the left-hand side is not 100% accurate towards the start of it. So we'll have to wait and see if it is 100% accurate. I'm just trying to move our logo back in place as it keeps on moving around. And there we have, lights out, and away we go. And it does indeed look like it is Dean Jacobs starting up on the front-hand line. It looks like Tevin Paul and Sean Norse also got a great rotation, but one of the white cars, it is Christopher Long, who looks like he's going to get some redemption day here from being towards the back-end side. He's definitely going to have himself a little bit of redemption here because he starts further up on the grid. And oh, there's already contact as he goes side by side there with Tevin Paul getting pushed off the track there. And even more, Tevin Paul is sideways in the background. What is going on? That's not Tevin Paul, that's another car who's gone off the track. I believe it might be JP Goslet, who went all the way to the backside. Indeed it was. And JP Goslet going sideways across the track here has had contact with someone, and unfortunately not a great start to his heat number 2.
Absolutely. Looks like a little bit of a moment there for Sakir, Goslet and Govender at the back end of the field as they hold their own in 13th, 14th and 15th positions. But we look back to the front end of the field and we see the two that were on the front row, Norse and Jacobs, fighting out and differing themselves between first and second. Christopher Long now up into third, removing himself from any of the chaos that happened in the first couple of corner incidents. Majia, a very good finish in that first heat, now moves himself back up into the top 4 in the second heat of the night. Tevin Paul, Schuster, Truscott, De Kock, Williams and Kent rounding out the top 10 on this opening lap. I think it's going to get even closer as we get closer to the halfway mark.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a little bit confused though because I'm seeing the purple car up in front of Sean Norse. Then I'm seeing Christopher Long, but behind Christopher Long is another white car. And I know the other two white cars we have is Gio Sakir and Ryan Grigoratos, both of which are not showing up on my side. I don't know if it shows on your side that they're up there. I see if I go to Gio Sakir, he's down in 12th position. And for the likes of Ryan Grigoratos, he's also down right now in 14th. So I'm trying to figure out what is the other white car who's currently fighting side by side with Christopher Long. I'm struggling to identify.
I believe that's Dean Jacobs as he goes off the track at this point in time. I'm just looking at the window stickers on the side. It is in fact Dean Jacobs who started in that pole position. So he's still fighting out for the top 3, but he's got Kitso Majia right on his case as they come to the end of the sector, or halfway through the sector rather, in the second lap. And they're going side by side down into the braking zone. And it will be Majia that tries to hold up his own, but he doesn't get the pass made through the corner. A little bit too much sausage curb gets him a bit unsettled and slots back into place. But now we look to the front end of the field and Mr. Redemption himself, after race number 1, is moved up into second and he's fighting for the lead of this race.
Fighting for the lead indeed. Apologies about that misidentification. I know Dean Jacobs to have the maroon car, but I saw the white stripe and I was immediately confused. It is indeed Dean Jacobs who's holding his water up at the top side. But Sean Kitson Majia is also wanting a bit of redemption from that poor start in heat number 1. He's managed to shimmy himself into the top 3 right now. Sean Norse holding P1 right now, but it is such a difficult fight between himself and Christopher Long, who now, in terms of track perspective, does take the lead of the race, but it's not all for sold just yet because Sean Norse is still just behind and possibly looking to dive up on the inside. Unfortunately, not enough traction in that front-wheel drive car to hold the inside line, and he loses out in that corner to Christopher Long. He's got to settle for second position. So Christopher Long now takes the lead of this race with Kitso Majia looking to do the same in third position. Two very hungry and very fast drivers trying to navigate their way to the top side of things. Ralf Schuster, who, can we mention, had an incredible finish in race number 1. He's now already up to 5th in race number 2. So a great launch up towards the top side of the field here for Ralf Schuster. And he's in for a good amount of point collections here in the championship standings.
But look at this massive group behind the top 5. We see that consisting of Paul, De Kock, Truscott, Kent, Williams, Oratila and Sakir all the way down to 12th position. There's a long train of cars coming through the mid-sector of the lap now, and they all just trying to find themselves into position without chopping and changing too much and causing any havoc. Some side-by-sides there between Truscott and De Kock now coming through the hairpin and down towards the last sector of the circuit. I mean, this is one massive, massive line of cars that are coming to finish this lap and find their own with only 15 minutes left of this race. Mind you, the first 5 minutes was chaos enough, as we see
Apologies
the
about
lead
that.
Christopher Long holding on at the front end of the field.
Yeah, bit of contact there between Vilji Truscott and Michael the Cock, and Vilji Truscott almost being spun around there at the final corner of the track. It looked like he was on that trajectory, but Michael the Cock just pulling out to allow for Vilji Truscott to straighten out his car again. That could have been way worse, but due to good judgment there from Michael the Cock, they were able to keep both of these green vehicles on the track, which is lovely to see. And even more fighting chance throughout the pack now. But one thing, like you mentioned, we have to keep our eye on this massive, absolutely massive, might actually be one of the biggest middle packs we've had so far in the TGN Pro Series. There is so much going on in that middle pack, and it is literally bumper to bumper anywhere that you look. Dean Jacobs, all the way from second, actually, from Kitsumagia down to Sean Norse. It is the train from second all the way down to 12th position of JP Goslet. Even further, actually, of Gio Sakia. It's just Ryan Grigoratos. There's contact, though. JP Goslet has been spun around again, and Gio Sakia, someone is facing backwards, and I believe it was Ryan Grigoratos, or Daniel Kent, actually. Daniel Kent was backwards on track. Yeah, backwards on track, and looks like he had a little bit of contact there with what looks to be Gio Sakia or JP Goslet, one of the two, but he's completely lost it. He's managed to recover himself somewhat, but that is an unfortunate spin from our top 5 finisher in heat number 1, and he's got a long way to work in the next 13 minutes if he wants to try and render the same results. It's going to be a difficult one on the board. Same goes for Oratile. Motsogotsele down in 10th position. He's got a lot of fighting to do with all the drivers up ahead. Known as Mr. Consistency for his good progress. Someone's in the wall there, and that's a full-on bash into the wall.
Let's have a look. I saw Motsogosele dive into the pits now as well, but I think it was worse than that. It looked like a dive into the pits, but it was straight across the circuit.
Grigoratos.
I believe it was Grigoratos, as we see now. Carl Williams pits, as does Otilio Motsogosele. So those two very quick drivers and front runners for sure are now diving into the pits with 13 minutes left to go, so a little bit earlier than the first set of pitters in race number 1. We'll see what this does for their overall strategy. But now, I mean, if we look to the front end of the field, Kitsumagia is closing up very, very so slowly on the back end of Christopher Long, as well as Ralph Schuster in that 3rd position. So these top 3 are getting closer and closer together before their round of pit stops comes into play.
This is going to be quite an interesting one to watch in the top 3. I'm still baffled as what on earth happened there with Ryan Grigoratos. He completely lost it and slammed into the wall there on the previous lap, but looks like he's okay and going to continue to go on strong over here. From our top 3, though, this is going to be back and forth fighting as Ralph Schuster, like we already mentioned, is getting closer and closer onto the backside of Kitsumagia. Sean Norse seems to have found himself a bit of luck here, and he's finding the consistency down in 4th position. Michael the Cock will also be balancing it out down in 5th position, with Vilji Truscott down in 6th, trying to make his way around, and with Michael the Cock just up ahead. Gio Sakia in 7th position, currently right in the slam middle of this grid. 15 cars, 7th and 8th, line up towards your mid side. And Dean Jacobs falls off, unfortunately, from 1st in the grid all the way down to 8th position now, and he's got a long fight ahead with Daniel Kent and Kevin Paul putting the pressure behind. Daniel Kent almost looking up the inside of the left-hand turn, and actually giving a little bit of a flash there to Dean Jacobs. Kevin Paul is also looking for some form of space that he can take here while the front 2 are fighting, and it does look like Daniel Kent is going to make his way around here on the outside barrier of Dean Jacobs, but he tucks back in, just not enough to make the overtake stick in a comfortable manner, and he's tucked behind the red car yet again. Ralph Schuster up in front is slowly but surely closing that gap, but he's going to have to work quite hard. Session Governed is coming out of the pit lane now as a couple of our drivers finish their pit stop revolving, and we are around about at that mid part. It's 11 minutes in, so a good time to get the car in and get some new tires on it.
Absolutely, is now a little bit of a mistake coming up against that wall for Christopher Long. Has opened up the door ever so slightly for Magia and for Schuster to close in on that top spot in the second heat. 10 minutes or just under 11 minutes to go rather, and now is Christopher Long going to decide to come into the pits a little bit earlier than the 2 fighting behind him? He's getting a little bit twitchy coming into the last 2 corners of the circuit. He doesn't want to lose out this position before this top 3's round of pit stops, as we'll see what is the strategy going to be coming down the main straight. Who's going to dive in? Long does go into the pits, as does Schuster. So Kito Magia will now get the straight line to try and have some open air and pull back what he had in race number 1. but we can also look through the rest of the top 10, and we see De Kock and Truscott now coming into the pits, as well as Daniel Kent, who's having a big battle with Tevin Paul, as well as Ryan Grigoratos and Truscott within the top 10. So now, with this massive round of pit stops coming in now, all the way down to 12th, we'll see where everyone slots into place when they exit the pits in just a moment.
Yeah, Tevin Paul also deciding to go for the overcut. He did not go in when Daniel Kent decided to come in, so he's staying out on track, currently in 5th position. And Dean Jacobs also going for that overcut strategy. We've seen what Kitsumagia did in qualifying, setting that 131.6. Now he needs to try and do it again. He's got the free air up in front. He needs to set one of the best laps he can possibly do in order to make this overcut strategy work. Will Kitsumagia come out ahead of Christopher Long, or is he going to fall short to the strategy and unfortunately have to tuck in here? Sean Norse is doing the same thing. He's decided to stay out, returning to his original starting position. And Gio Sakia, same thing, staying out and deciding to see what he can do with playing the cards slightly later towards the race. Here comes Kitsumagia around the final hairpin. Is he going to come in after one lap of sprinting, or is he going to attempt one more good lap and potentially try and extend the overcut strategy? He's nope, he's holding on that outside line, and he's going to go up. He's going to stick out for yet another lap. We're not sure how many laps he's going to go for, but it looks like he is comfortable. That last was a 133.5. What was the last for Christopher Long? It was a 135.5. So slightly faster still. On the barricades currently is Kitsumagia, and he's doing a good job if he wants the overcut strategy to be a success.
Well, look at this, Tristan, with the top 5, that being 2nd through to 5th, Sakia, Jacobs, Norse, and Paul all dive into the pits. Now this leaves a completely open door for Christopher Long on those fresh tires, on a little bit more fuel to try and close up, and he needs to put in some serious, what would be quali pace times. He puts 2 wheels on the dirt there, coming through that first turn to catch up to Kitsumagia, who's now going halfway through this halfway through the lap rather. And now, actually I lie, coming closer to the end of the lap. And is he going to pit now? I don't think he can actually hold on this tank of fuel any longer. So I think with enough open air, we'll see what his delta looks like. 7/10 on this lap, down on his fastest lap of the race. So he doesn't want to leave bad tires and little fuel in the tank left too long. So I think he's going to come in here, and we're going to see how close the top 3 come together when he leaves the pits.
This last 7 minutes of racing is going to be the absolute pinnacle of heat number 2. When everyone's done with those pit stop strategies and it all comes down to that raw pace, Kitsumagia decides to come into the pit lane now, and he's going to be jumping in towards the 7-minute marker. And now all eyes to 2nd position. Christopher Long starts his embarkment on the final hairpin. And I'm not too sure. This is looking a little bit too close for my comfort here. It depends on how long this pit stop is going to be from Kitsumagia. His box is all the way at the end of the pit lane. And so watching on that cam, when does Kitsumagia come out? He's standing still. He's off the jacks. Kitsumagia is now moving out of the pit lane, but Christopher Long is coming at a rapid speed. Kitsumagia just exits the pit lane. He's got the inside line. He doesn't have the speed though, and unfortunately, he loses out to not only Christopher Long, but Ralph Schuster as well. The overcut was not the correct strategy here, and Kitsumagia has to return to the backside of Ralph Schuster. He was ahead of Ralph Schuster. He held 2nd, but he's unfortunately lost out to both now, and will have to settle for 3rd. It's going to be a long, hard fight for Kitsumagia. Michael De Kock is also just behind in 4th position, so we could have a 4-way here for the lead of this race, or it could begin to spread. We do not know, and we're going to have to watch, wait, and see. There's a good battle also down in 10th right now. Dean Jacobs holding off JP Goslet and Session Governor. It's great to see all the action across the board.
As you say that, a massive slide for Dean Jacobs, who was leading that trio through the midfield, and now he slotted himself just behind JP Goslet. That was mighty close without making any sort of contact amongst the 3. So he kept himself out of trouble, to say the least. But still, losing your position is not what you want, and he's getting mighty close with Session Governor on his case right now. So he doesn't want to lose any more places with 5 minutes and 45 seconds left to go. But the top 3 is also getting closer. As we saw, losing out 2 positions was Kitsumagia on his pit stop as they all go a little bit wide, touching on the grass coming out of the final corner. It's now almost coming to a four-way fight as we can see Michael de Kock in the background just trying to trail in and get the slipstream of Mejia and Schuster ahead. So I think we are going to have, I know rather, we're going to have a four-way battle in the top in the top four with the last 5 minutes left to go.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be great to see once it turns into a four-way battle. It would be great if we could convert to five-way, but unfortunately, Vilgie Truscott is a little bit further behind. They're 5 seconds behind the leader, so about 3 seconds behind Michael de Kock. And so he's going to have to work hard if he wants to, you know, have a play into that equation in the next 4.5 or so minutes left to go. Aratile, also down in 7th, has got himself some fresh breathing air behind. And with Carl Williams just up in front, he's going to want to try and plan an attack in the next coming laps. Sakia has got a lot of breathing air up in front. Unfortunately, about 5 or so seconds away from Aratile up in front. So he's going to have to try and see if he can climb the ranks there, or if he's going to have to settle a little bit further behind. Our race leader, Sean Norse, who started 2nd, and now down to 9th position, unfortunately. Challenging himself just a bit down towards the 9th position slot. JP Gosling will try and put the pressure on from behind. And the rest of the drivers, we do have a bit of a fight going on with Dean Jacobs and the likes of Session Governor. These two have been going at it for the last quite a bit. But one thing to know is that that top is getting different because Ralph Schuster...
I was just about to say, Ralph Schuster's just went side by side out of one of the last couple of corners and has made the move on Christopher Long. Now, so does Kitso Mejia as he moves up into 2nd place. Just a terrible run out of the final corner for Christopher Long, but he's got 3 and a bit minutes left to go to try and claw that lead back. There's a little bit of a wider line there for Kitso Mejia, just sort of closes the door a little bit for Christopher Long, with Michael de Kock also on his way trying to get up into that top 3, or maybe even closer to the lead of this race after being a little bit further back from the top 3 the entirety of the last 15-16 minutes. It's now a 3.5 minute fight for the lead with 4 drivers, but we look to the top 2, Schuster and Majida just fighting out even harder than the duo behind them of Long and de Kock coming to the latter stages of this race.
Yeah, all to play for now with the last 3 minutes because things have completely changed. The bearings have moved away, and now we are facing a completely different cardinal direction in terms of the lead of this race. Ralph Schuster has completely converted differently here, and what a great run. Like we mentioned, I think Christopher Long, just a poor exit onto that final corner and onto the main straight, and it's led him to lose 2 positions, almost about to lose a 3rd here as Michael de Kock is literally on his rear bumper, doing everything he can in that Ford Focus or the Ford Fiesta. A little bit unrecognizable with the BTCC body kit between those 2 cars, but Ralph Schuster holding it up in front with the Cooper Leon. Kitso Mejia and the slightly more challenging Vauxhall doing everything that he can in that green car. Let's see, the top speed advantage is going to be towards the Cooper Leon here, but Kitso Mejia does have the slipstream. He's going to go side by side here, going down into turn number 1. Ralph Schuster holding that inside line so that he can get the advantage here. Let's hope that there is no corner fade out and that no one pushes each other off track here. Looks like Ralph Schuster's gotten the better deep dive, and he's going to hold off on Kitso Mejia, but now it's converted. Kitso's on the inside for the next corner, and he's holding it, and he's going to make it stick. What a great roll! Massive contact.
Massive. And that sends him right off into that 2nd corner. Just not enough, and Long, in fact, both going off in turn 2. Just both fighting for the same bit of tarmac at the same time and both losing out as Vilgia Truscott goes through, as well as Carl Williams. Sakia and Oratile Matsukosele go past Michael de Kock for 7th and 6th. So there's even more drama into the last minute and a half of this race. But Kitso Mejia just holding out front, staying clear of any issues, as well as Ralph Schuster. So now it's going to be this duo out front that need to keep it clean and consistent for the last minute and a half, as they will get one more lap after this before the white flag comes out and they'll end the 2nd heat. But this is just getting mighty tough throughout the entirety of the grid.
Was one great overtake there from Kitso Mejia, and just one unfortunate incident just behind with the 2 Cape Town drivers of Christopher Long and Michael de Kock. Like you mentioned, just trying to fight over the same little square of tarmac, and unfortunately 2 cars cannot coexist in the same space, and that just led to quite a fast-paced incident, if you have to ask me. If that was real life, that would be quite a harsh incident and possibly not a return to the final stages of this race. But fortunately, there is no pure damage on in these sessions, so the cars are fully ready to keep on going. The only thing that gets damaged is obviously the tire wear from scraping all over the tar and also onto those gravel traps on the outside bearings of the track here. But Kitsumagia is doing an incredible job of keeping Ralf Schuster at bay, and it looks like he's going to be doing the exact same thing for the remainder of the 25 seconds. It is officially final lap racing here with 20 seconds left to go. Kitsumagia and Volji Truscott, obviously the newcomers to the podium spots over here as they all switch it around. Kyle Williams is on a little bit of pressure here with Christopher Long just a bit further behind, but he's trying to get into that top three with Volji Truscott just a bit further up. Christopher Long has done a good job after the incident to get himself back up into fifth here, but he's going to have to work hard with Oratile and Gio Sakia just a bit further behind. Michael de Kock is also trailing down in 8th position. Seems he got the worst of it in the incident, and he's going to do the most amount of work to try and bring it home. Yeah, Sean Norse fighting with JP Goslet as they come towards the final stages of this race. But up in front, the most important battle being Kitsumagia and Ralf Schuster, who will come across to the final hairpin now.
He's just opening up that gap enough by a handful of car lengths in this last lap of the race. The white flag out for the majority of this. Now 2 more apexes to go. Just need to keep it clean, try not to get any tires on the dirt, and he does so. A little bit on the concrete on the outside, but it's more than enough around the final corner for Kitsumagia to come home and take victory in race number 2 ahead of Ralf Schuster right at the very end by almost nothing to the flag. As we look just behind them, we look towards Carl Williams and Vilji Truscott as well, nose to tail, coming across the line for 3rd and 4th respectively. Christopher Long, a good fight back at the very end there to beat out Sakir, De Kock and Motsogo Sele for 6th, 7th and 8th in their respective positions, with a nice big battle right to the very end between Sean Norse and JP Goslet, as Goslet just beats out Sean Norse at the very end. Session Governor also right behind, with Ryan Grigoratos and Dean Jacobs finishing real close together. Daniel Kent, after an unfortunate incident halfway through the race, brings it home in 14th, with Tevin Paul. That was mighty fine right up until the very end.
Mighty fine indeed. A couple of switch-ups towards the end side of it, but that is racing for you in a nutshell. Heat number 2 has been action-packed, and if you thought that was cool, wait for heat number 3, with it being the randomized chaos grid. We do have to allocate a little bit of time for the server swap to get onto our randomized server, so we will be back in approximately 15 to 20 minutes time. Now you can grab something proper to eat, not some quick a nut snack or something that you grab out of the fruit bowl. Go and get yourself something nice for the final 20 minutes, and we will see you shortly here at TGN Racing Simulators.
See you now, everyone.
Que Dios te lo ha dado, niña. Que Dios te lo ha dado, niña.
And we're officially back for the final race here tonight. Heat number 3 of tonight's racing at round 7, the penultimate round of the TGN Pro Series first season of 2026. We've got another one coming for you starting around June side, which is already looking quite exciting. But it looks like JP Goslet has gotten the rotation here, and he's starting up in first with Christopher Long getting that redemption in second. I'm going to hand over here to Jordan. He's going to take us away for race start in approximately 15 seconds time. Aratile also in third position.
Well, this is the random grid that sends us away for the third heat and the final heat of the night. It will be the two Cupras on the front row of the grid as the 6 lights come on. And we get underway. Good starts for the good top 5, top 6, top 10. In fact, neatly off the line as we go down towards turn number 1. And they're almost making it 5 wide going through as everyone keeping it neatly, some just touching the grass in the mid-pack, but it's still nose to tail. Goslet and Long side by side into turn number 2. A little bit of contact at the front end there for JP Goslet. He comes out better of the rest. Motsogosele slotting into second ahead of Giasakia. Long bumping down a handful of positions down into 4th, still keeping within that top 5, the area that he wants to be. He needs to make up the points for the last 2 races of tonight. As we look all the way down through this first racing lap, it is Goslet from Motsogosele from Sakia, and that is your top 3 as we continue racing.
Unfortunately for Daniel Kent yet again, and Tevin Paul all the way down at the backside of our grid here for heat number 3, both taken out in that turn number 1 incident, or turn number 2, the hairpin of the first slight sector. And unfortunately Daniel Kent and Tevin Paul both involved and being taken out of the race. So they've got a far and long drive ahead of them to get back up to the start. But just like Jordan mentioned, the top 3, actually the top 5, around about getting quite a good start. JP Goslet has maintained his cool, and he's held that first position up at the top. Aratile, though, is going to be quite a contester here for points in second position. Giasakia also hunting down with Christopher Long in 4th, looking for some redemption. The championship leader is not looking to give that lead away whatsoever, and so he's trying to get a first position win here. He has not gotten one tonight, and a lot of bashing door by door going here between himself and Giasakia. A little bit of messy racing between the two of them as they go around the track. The rest of the drivers also just trying to maintain. Kitsumajia down 9th and Rolf Schuster in 10th. Both of them in 4th and 5th on the championship standings. They are wanting the good points.
That into turn number 2, just a little bit side by side, and then nose to tail contact as Christopher Long sort of barges himself through cleanly to get up another position and into the top 3. However, this has put Giasakia in a position, and he's lost a handful of places down from Sean Norse and Vilji Truscott to move out into the 6th spot. A little bit off-track action for Truscott now, and jumping ahead of Sakia once again. But this has also opened the door for Session Governor to come into play in the Hyundai as they come down into the braking zone. More side by side for Truscott and Sakia, right up close and contact with the concrete barrier, and that sends Truscott in the wrong direction, and more chaos in the latter end of the grid. Everyone's sort of finding their way through cleanly, and that has put Vilji Truscott down now into 14th. That really puts some trouble to his race.
Yeah, Gregor Artos as well, just rejoining the track behind Vilji Truscott. Seems to have had a bit of an incident himself in that 6th corner, and falling off the track, having to rejoin, and he's all the way to the backside. Only driver behind him is going to be the likes of Tevin Paul. So a bit of a rough one out there for our drivers here for the chaos race of heat number 3. A couple of them really struggling to find their feet here tonight. But Aratile Motsogosele is not finding any form of errors. He is setting the fastest lap of the race up into second. He's putting the pressure on JP Goslet, and this is going to be high pressure situations here for the race lead. JP Goslet is going to run wide, and he carries Aratile on his outside line. That's going to slow both of their rolls, and Christopher Long has gotten a bit of an advantage to try and catch up to the top 2, so he may have a 5-way fight here if the 3 behind are able to catch up to Motsogosele and Goslet. I'm hoping for that, as that would be even more action for the virtual grandstand here. Kitsumajia manages to avoid that contact earlier with Vilji Truscott. He was just up ahead of that incident, and he holds 7th position. Rolf Schuster follows him off the gravel trap there in 8th position. Michael de Kock down 9th, and Carl Williams just holding off the final spot of the top 10. The rest of the drivers all trying to fight their way through the chaos here, but all eyes are on this mid-pack that is going to be ever so changing throughout the rest of this race. Nothing is final at this point in the race. 15 minutes to go. Only 5 minutes have gone through here, and the drivers are hungry for position change.
Oh, you're right now, just in that, sure, only 5 minutes have passed by, but I'm sure to these drivers it feels like an eternity already. As we look now within the top 5 and top 10, we see this massive train of cars once again, like we saw halfway through race number 2. And these guys are going to be arging and barging, trying to find position, trying to move up the best that they can. Coming up on halfway in about 5 minutes time, we look to Goslet and to Motsukosele out front, and that gap is opened up by quite a considerable margin now to just over a second as they come down towards turn number 2's braking zone. Christopher Long just trying to improve himself as much as he can, 2.2 seconds off the lead. Then we've got the likes of Sakir, Norse, Govender, Mattia and Schuster all in this massive train coming through the first sector now, and all they have to do, we've spoken about consistency and comfort when you're in an open space, when you've got a clear air, but the biggest thing that these drivers have to worry about them right now is themselves and the egos that come into play in the latter stages of a very, very competitive and serious race. So they just can't let themselves get the better of themselves in that fact, as we've got a group of 4 with Sakir, Norse, Govender and Majia coming into this massive tight section, all almost 3 wide.
Just heard a bit of a grunt and shout there on the floor. Yeah, Joe Burgers, there's a bit of contact with Sean Norse and Govender, and Sean Norse loses out a little bit of traction there. He's lost 2 spots, and there's even more contact. Kitsumajia has gotten, a little bit of contact on the backside and almost getting taken out wide there. It's a little bit too close for comfort here in this mid-pack, and drivers are getting a bit too comfortable with the contact. They've got to watch out here, because when real penalty gets initiated, that could be a couple of penalties similar to, oops, someone's fallen through the void. I'm not too sure who just fell through the map there, but someone has temporarily disappeared. I hope it was short term and they're back on it. We had this last week where somebody fell off, and I am seeing Dean Jacobs with his hand up in the air, but looks like he's okay. He's back on the fight, so hopefully there was a quick short-term incident and he's back out for the fight. Geosakia holding that 4th position spot now. Unfortunately, the gap ahead is quite large between himself and Christopher Long, but Ralph Schuster is putting the pressure on in 4th position, now 5th, trying to build up the confidence to make the overtake stick. Kitsumajia in that mid-pack, almost getting spun out wide in the previous lap, has seemed to have found a bit of a steady footing as he's up ahead now of Sean Norse and Session Governor, with Michael de Kock down in 9th position, and Carl Williams staying out of all the trouble for the time being, still holding off that 10th position spot. Daniel Kent, who spun all the way at the beginning of the race, is back up into the 11th position slot, and looks like he is on a steady road to recovery for the time being. But 12 minutes left to go, approximately 1 minute till we see the common pit stops coming in. We've got a few that might come in a bit later, depending on the comfortability around track, but JP Goslet up in front is just extending the gap lap by lap to Oretile, who's just not able to set the same consistent lap times that JP is able to do.
Well, if I was someone like Daniel Kent, who had a rough last race, I spoke to him out in the room at the end of race number 2, and he said he just had some trouble in the pits, overshooting the pit box and not actually doing his pit strategy for that second heat, which put him in a load of bother and at the back end of the grid. Now he's at the tail end of this train between 11th all the way up to 4th spot. There's this massive group that are coming through now down the pits front straight, 3 wide between Schuster, Sakir and Mattia coming down towards turn number 1. Who is going to be the bravest of them all? And it will be Kitso Mattia that comes through in the lead of this group of 3, ahead of Sakir and Schuster down towards the braking zone. So now, if I was Daniel Kent that manages to get himself up into 8th position, we'll see a handful of pits. Williams comes in, Grigoratos, Govender and de Kock, all very quick front-running contenders. They need to come out very cleanly with a decent amount of clean air with 11.5 minutes to go, and we need to watch Goslet, Motsogosele and Long, the front 3, currently all in a race of their own with some large gaps in between the 3 of them. We got to see where they come into pit and if they can make it to the end still in their positions, if not better.
Yeah, a couple of drivers coming into the pit stop there on that final lap. Michael de Kock, Session Governor and Carl Williams, all 3 following each other in suit, and into the pit box they jump to get their mandatory done and dusted here for this race. Right at the 11-minute mark indeed, so that's the common pit stop done for them. and a couple of the others for the undercut and overcut will be coming in shortly. We'll have to wait and see when those pit stops are going to come in. For the time being, though, the mid-pack, like Jordan said, is still very much to play for. There is a lot going on between the packs. Fourth position of Kitsumajia, obviously getting the lead of Ralph Schuster and Jessica.
Sorry, just jumping in there, and our leader, JP Gosling, has jumped into the pit at 10.5 minutes. So now we'll look and wait as the rest of the field comes through. Is this going to be the chance for Christopher Long to just hold it out ever so slightly and try and come in a little bit later than he has in the first 2 races and put on clean tires? I know he was pushing really hard in race number 2. He burnt his tires up a lot as he goes very wide through turn number 2, that long left-hander. So that might not help him out at all, as he needs some decent speed to try and at least get to the lead within the next lap or so, and then jump into the pit and hopefully still have a good gap towards the lead when we see JP Gosling come out, and he has come out of the pits now in 8th position.
Yeah, Daniel Kent also decided to jump in there following the same order there as JP Gosling, so he's just come out in 12th position. JP, though, in 8th, has got a long train of cars ahead of him that have got to jump into the pit lane, so for now it's a little bit of an unmotivational or a demotivational situation when you see so many cars up ahead, but he does need to remember they do all need to come in and serve their mandatory, so we'll have to wait and see what Dean Jacobs all the way up to Aratile Motogotsele are going to do. Christopher Long, like we already spoken about, is the person to watch for here. He's doing everything he can for some redemption here today and possibly get himself a victory in terms of right at the top of the throne for heat number 3. But he does have the obstacle of Aratile Motogotsele up in front, who's just ahead, and he is indeed in the correct position for pole. He hasn't come into box yet, so it's not like it's a quick overtake for Christopher Long, and it looks like they're both going to follow each other into the pit lane. Christopher Long and Motsogotsele come in. Kitsumajia stays out though, and he's going to be staying out for yet another lap in the Vauxhall, going for the overcut strategy here, with Ralph Schuster following in the same order. So the two of them going for a slightly later pit stop. Looks like Jeff Sakia is going to follow them, and so is Sean Norse, following in that slightly overcut mannered strategy. And we're going to have to wait and see, is this strategy going to be the more wise choice, or are we going to see the same situation with heat number 2, where our drivers who took the overcut unfortunately had the slower rotation on track and lost out to our early pit stoppers?
Problem is now, for those that are very fierce in their racing, the guys that attack all the best that they can throughout the entirety of the race, you don't want to burn your new tires up too quickly, because that is going to put you in a spot of bother, like we saw Christopher Long do in race number 2. Now he currently sits down in 8th, but he's got the likes of Motsogotsele ahead, Michael de Kock, JP Gosling, who was your provisional leader up until the set of pit stops came into play. Now he's up into 5th. He's got a decent amount of air to himself, Sean Norse, Giasakia, Ralph Schuster, and Kitso Majila, as they sit at the front end of the field. But now everyone is coming up to making their first set of pit stops, as in the top 3, if not top 4, and JP Gosling will slot back into the lead once they've done that, with 7.5 minutes left on the clock.
7.5 indeed, and we witnessed the same 7-minute slot at the heat number 2 race, and that's where things started to get a little bit spicy between our drivers. It's when most complete their pit stops. As we said, Kitsumajia jumps in, and Ralph Schuster is probably going to follow, as we do not see Ralph Schuster come in. He's actually going to stay out for yet another lap. So Ralph going for the extreme overcut strategy here, definitely feeling comfortable in that Cooper Leon, and we'll have to wait and see if it's going to be the correct choice. Gio Sakia and Sean Norse both come in, meaning the only driver left out in the top 10 is going to be Ralph Schuster to get that pit stop done. Unfortunately, he's going to drop quite drastically when he comes in to serve that pit stop, because the rest of the drivers, JP Gosling, already up into 2nd position now, and it seems like his overcut, his pit stop strategy has worked out compared to Christopher Long, as he's well ahead of Christopher Long, and Carl Williams a little bit further behind. Michael de Kock got quite a good rotation in that pit stop as he pops out in 3rd position. He's ahead of Aratile even, and seems like that's really worked out in his favor. The rest of the drivers all trying to do what they can in this mid-rotation of what we've got left of this race. 6 minutes and 29 seconds left. It is side by side currently for Kitsumajia and Aratile, both very good friends out on track and in the virtual racing scenes across the other South African leagues, and the two of them going at it now in the middle part of the sector in terms of this track at the Sydney Motorsports Park. Again, first time feature at the TGN Pro Simulators, the Pro Series for TGN Racing Simulators. And good to see it out on the roster, like we already spoke about. A bit of a new one, and first time racing on it, yeah, for the boys from Pro-Am last week in the GR86s and for the pros here in the BTCC cars. But 5 minutes left to go. Does Ralph Schuster come in? Indeed he does. The final car to come into the pit box, and all depends now on where he comes out when he finishes the pit stop.
You had to jump in now. I think cutting 10 laps and 5 minutes left to go is a little bit fine on the strategy as we see JP Gosling come around the final corner. I think in Ralph Schuster's mind, all he had to do was just have some clean air, even if it wasn't older tires, as JP Gosling will now cross the line and take away the current first position from Ralph Schuster as he starts to make his way off the jacks and out the pits. He'll slot into place with better tires and a little bit more fuel, but with 5 minutes left to go, he's going to be putting himself in quite a bit of bother, fighting all the way there behind Carl Williams and Christopher Long, that are now fighting for the top 5 overall in the last 5 minutes of this race. And just ahead of them, Kitsumajia and Oratile Matsukosele also fighting out in this duo, with Michael de Kock ahead in that second spot on his own, and JP Gossard on his lonesome out front, just trying to reel in the last 4 minutes and 50 seconds to take overall victory in heat number 3 for the night.
He's got the absolute best odds here for tonight. Unfortunately, JP Gossard has not had the best of seasons here for the Pro Series first season of 2026. He's had a couple of unfortunate incidents towards the starting sides of each heat. If you go back to Silverstone and a couple of the previous tracks we've been at, he just has been involved in a couple of incidents where nothing he could do about it but just be a passenger to the chaos. But it seems like today is redemption day, because 4 minutes left to go, up in the lead with a 5-second gap roughly to Michael de Kock. All he needs to do now is manage himself and manage his speed and expectancy, as we see Ralph Schuster really eating a lot of grass over there as Carl Williams is pushing him off the side of the track. He actually pushes him completely off the racing line, which forces Ralph Schuster to completely slow down the car and rejoin the racing line before completely missing the apex there. And so that's given Carl Williams a strategic advantage in terms of the gap up ahead. And lots and lots of fighting still between. All the way from 3rd down to 9th position, we've got a massive train of cars. Daniel Kent will close it off down at the backside, just behind Session Govender, and Kitsumajia leading it in 3rd position. He's got a lot of pressure, though, from Oratile Matsogotsele, as well as Carl Williams and Schuster just a bit further behind. Session Governor's doing all that he can, but here comes Daniel Kent with a possible attack on the inside line through the next corner, and Govender goes wide, and Kent makes an easy overtake up to the inside line with 3 minutes left to go, making a recovery from his incident at the start, and it looks like he is A4 away for some good results here in heat number 3.
And after race number 2 for Daniel Kent, it was a bit of a disaster ending out in the bottom 2 of the grid. Now, all that matters to a lot of these drivers at this point in time is just gaining as many points as you can coming up on the final round in 2 weeks' time. So, trying to keep themselves all within check with 3 minutes left to go, just under, as we look at JP Gossard out front, just holding a dominating race so far ahead of Kitsumajia, who also is just sitting in a position for valuable points. Oratile Motokosele also fighting out.
Oh, that's really a big accident.
For that
Apologies
top 3.
about cutting off there.
Accident,
yeah,
right.
Christopher Long.
Oh, very, very unfortunate for the Cape Town man. After terrible luck in the first and second heat, he's dropped himself a little bit further down into 9th now, recovered well, but still just within the top 10 and not where he wants to be, as he knows he can be higher up the grid.
Yeah, looks like he had a bit of an incident there with Gio Sakia. I watched a couple of cars going off the track there, about 3 or 4 cars, I believe. And I believe Ryan Grigoratos and the likes of Gio Sakia were all involved in that one. Sean Norris could have possibly been involved as well. I did see a couple of cars going off. Not 100% certain. But, oh, there's another sidewinder. Completely sideways is Daniel Kent coming into the first left-hander. What an absolute save from Daniel Kent to keep that car from going into the barrier. And completely crossing the wheel over 360 degrees. And perfecting a drift, I've got to say, on that corner.
I believe actually, Tristan, that was Carl Williams, as I've seen his name drop down 3 spots behind Kent, Long and Sakir. So even worse of a position for Carl Williams in that purple car. I believe that color is as they come into frame now. And now there's a group of 4, a squad, if you will, fighting just outside of the top 5, that being that of Governor just ahead of this group of 4, but it's Long, Kent, Sakir and Williams fighting for the last positions of the top 10 with 1.5 minutes left to go. We're going to have to tune in with JP Gossard in just a moment, as he is sitting quite
that's
happily
huge.
in, but
Gio
another big
Sakia.
one, sorry.
Yeah, Gio Sakia jumping over the right-hand side curb just under the bridge and completely faces the right-hand side door into the wall there and lost all of his momentum now. Far behind Carl Williams. There's a lot going on here in the final moments of the race. like there has been for the whole night of a Heat 1 and Heat 2, but it just seems like Giuseppe lost his balance and completely rammed the car into the wall. But in terms of positive news, JP Goslet has officially been shown the white flag. It is final lap territory for JP Goslet, someone who we actually haven't seen take a win at all across any heats, across any rounds for the TGN Pro Series, the first season of 2026. This right here is hard work and dedication coming from JP Goslet. He got the start with the random grid order. He got the pace across the board. He was able to keep consistent, and it looks like it's going to pay off.
Yep, he's got a couple more corners left to go in this final heat of the night, in the final heat for the penultimate round. And he just needs to stay calm and consistent. He's got a back market just... Oh, sorry, I lie. He's coming around the final two corners with Kitsumajia just a bit of a gap away for that second spot, but comfortably in that second spot as well, and holding off some of the points that he can in the championship. As we see coming through the mid-sector still, JP Goslet just on a charge, all on his own, and that's exactly what he needs for the comfort of his own being. For the final round, he's got some good pace, he knows it, and he can take these points into the final round in 2 weeks' time and know that he's got a chance to get a little bit higher up the grid.
Yeah, unfortunately for JP Goslet, he's not in the top 10 as it stands, but this could possibly put him closer to the top 10. It's been a good round of consistent racing for the Yellow Cooper Leon of JP Goslet, and Redemption Day is bittersweet. Across the line he comes, and it's a P1 finish. Kitsumajia is going to come across the line in second, with Ralph Schuster finishing off in third. Moritile Motsogotsele is going to fight to the line with Michael the Cock and loses the position on the line. Session Governor comes sixth with Christopher Long, unfortunately taking seventh a bit further behind. Daniel Kent loses to Kyle Williams on the line and will have to settle for ninth. Giosakia will take 10th with Sean Norse taking 11th. It's going to be 12th for Ryan Grigoratos, 13th for Truscott, 14th for Tevin Paul, and down, or Tevin Paul, sorry, 15th. Down as the final. Has Vilgi Truscott run out of fuel? I believe he has. Just before the line, Vilgi Truscott will have to limp the car over, and it's going to be a positive finish there for Tevin Paul, who gets one up before the end of it. But Tevin, for Vilgi Truscott, running out of fuel. That's the first for me that I've seen in the Pro Series, and looks like he's just going to make it.
It's downhill, sorry.
He's just going to roll.
Downhill in the circuit, so just clutch in and let it freewheel itself across the line, and we wait. There it is, checkered flag to finish off in 15th. And wow, what a race it was for all our Cape Tony. And I've got a tiny bit of bias. JP Goslet, what a race on his own, with Kitsumajia and Ralph Schuster fighting super hard for that final two spots of the top three. And then we saw, I mean, we were commentating on it throughout the entirety of the race, all the way down from 4th, it was down to 12th. Throughout the race, a massive train of cars coming together. At all times, it was properly spectacular.
Yeah, absolutely spectacular indeed. And if you enjoyed what you saw here for round number 7, there is just one round left of the Pro Series. The Pro-Ams are coming up next week, Thursday. Exact same time, exact same place. But then we've got the Pros in 2 weeks' time to round it up for season 1 of 2026 of the TGN Pro Series. That's it for tonight in terms of our 3 heats. Our next event coming up is going to be your TGN Endurance Series, coming up just ever so shortly on June the 7th. You do want to be there if you want to get involved in the action. My name has been Tristan Herbst, joined in the commentary box by Jordan. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight, and we hope to see you for the final round number 8, to close us off for the Pro Series. It's been an absolutely great one. Thank you once again to Master Drive and TGN Pro Series and TGN Racing Simulators for the vouchers at the end to all of our drivers. But without further ado, we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Have an awesome night, and thanks for attending. Cheers.
Yeah, everybody. See you soon. And I've been Jordan Hubin. Thank you very much to Tristan for co-hosting with me and showing me the ropes. And yeah, great day of racing, and we'll see you all very, very soon.